First, I'm going to create a new material to demonstrate the manner in which EM handles new materials. Now we're going to create a job file with our layout in it. I'm going to copy this room just to have a second room. We're going to save this. And we're going to copy this job number. And the most critical thing, which links up the Cabinet Vision job to Enterprise Manager, is to specify the Enterprise Manager job number in the job number field here. There's two ways of getting data from Cabinet Vision to Enterprise Manager. First one is from the Reports tab. We can click the Post to Enterprise Manager button, but that's not the normal way that it's done. The normal way is simply to enter the Screen to Machine Center, and a client program running on the machine is going to see it pop up inside a solid, kill it so it doesn't get used, import the data, and then open my Screen to Machine Center interface. And here's the import process. What it's doing now is bringing in a list of all the cabinets, the rooms, creating a bill of materials for each cabinet. This is my Screen to Machine Center interface. We'll cover that more in a minute, because I'm actually going to return to Cabinet Vision and specify the new material that I created. So that you can see what happens when Enterprise Manager encounters a new material. And again, the way we're going to cause an import is simply to enter the Screen to Machine Center. And before it begins an import, it scans for any materials that it hasn't already had an association created. An association is what tells Enterprise Manager what the Cabinet Vision material represents. So in this case, we can tell it it's used in constructing the cabinet as opposed to packaged with the assembly. This way it's printed in different groups for people who put together packages to send with each cabinet. Whether we're importing total quantities or whether we want to bring each piece in, and if it's each piece, we can specify a formatting string. That's useful for things like glass, where you're actually buying individual pieces at particular sizes. A waste factor, and then a multiplier that tells Cabinet Vision for each one piece, or Enterprise Manager, for each one piece that comes out of Cabinet Vision, how much of the SKU or how much to import. So we can say in this case, this is going to be an edge banding, and we're going to stock our edge banding by the roll. So we'll say for every one that comes in from Cabinet Vision, which is feet, we're going to bring in 1/600th of a roll. We can say what SKU it is. In this case, it's a new SKU we don't have. I'll just pull up all edge banding. So if it was one of these, we'd simply select it and hit OK. But since we don't have one already, we'll hit New SKU. We'll say it's edge banding. That's going to be my new test. We're going to stock it by the roll. Ordering description is test material. We can say that we want to add it to the label or add it to the shipment, which means every time we put one of these cabinets onto a shipment, this comes through. We'll actually set it as that just to demonstrate. Assign what vendor it goes to. We'll assign it to my test vendor, which is me. Give it an item number. Then this controls what shows up on the purchase order. Let's just say this vendor wanted to see lineal feet. We could say the multiplier to get from our unit of measure to what goes on the purchase order is 600, because for every one roll we want to show 600 lineal feet. We could set must buy, pack size, a specified cost, that kind of thing. Whether it's a stock SKU, which means Enterprise Manager controls the inventory. We're not going to do any of that. You see that didn't validate because I didn't have this vendor set as the primary vendor. So we got our new SKU. Refresh, there's our new SKU right there. And then we have size-based associations for sheet goods only in the Screen and Machine Center. We can specify that different sizes of material go with different SKUs. Now we're bringing the import process back in, just like before. And it's updating the bill of materials to reflect our new selection. This way it's not possible to go into manufacturing without updating your MRP, ERP system. Again, this is my Screen and Machine Center interface. We'll cover it in just a second. First thing I'm going to do is flip back to my other still open window of Enterprise Manager. I'm going to reload this job. We can see two things. First of all, if I scroll down on the job, it's got some bill of material stock costs that are expected now. That wasn't there before. And we can load the rooms and see where that comes from. See, there's 24 cabinets, 4 countertops. This is our job file. You can see it's a Cabinet Vision job file. Here's the path where it was located. Here's the date on it. We can have multiple job files attached to the same Enterprise Manager job. We can drill down to the individual rooms. Here's my first room. It's got 12 cabinets. 12 are not in production yet and are remaining to be completed. We can drill down to the individual cabinets. Here's our countertops. We can see some state on it, some size, finished, in splash. We can see cabinets, same information. We can left click and get a menu of things we can do with this cabinet. One of them being to pull the bill of materials. Let's see what it's going to take to build this cabinet. So we got some non-SKU stuff, 5 linear feet of toe kick groove, edge banding. We got my test material here. If we click on anything, we can see what cabinets have it and how much. Doesn't make a lot of sense because we're only looking at one cabinet, but we can. We can see the doors that are going to be needed. And right from here, we can transfer anything we want to manufacturing resource planning and go ahead and order it. We can tell it to subtract for on-hands and order just the difference. We could tell it I want exactly what it says here. We could run MRP, which says you tell me what to order based on this information. We can also, I'll show it in just a minute here. We can edit an individual assembly. We can actually manually add assemblies that don't exist in Cabinet Vision. Little thing down here, if you edit an assembly imported from CabinetWare, Cabinet Vision, the next import's just going to override any changes you make. Their information is controlled in the engineering software. We can pull an individual room's bill of materials. And what I was going to demonstrate before but didn't, we can select some doors and we can transfer them to a crystal report. So we can pull report data, and again this is customizable for our doors, drawer boxes, that kind of thing, without having to even open up Cabinet Vision. We can pull drawer boxes as well. We can pull the whole jobs, job files, bill of material, or all job files, bill of materials. Now before we actually go into production, Not all shops use the Screen and Machine Center. Some of them use BeamSolve point to point, and they don't use any of my stuff beyond this other than the shipping module. And this is a list of shipments that exist. But if we were going to go ahead and set up a shipment on these, we could create a new shipment, select our test job, it's scheduled. We can add the job site address that was entered in job properties. We can add assemblies that are not already shipped. That way, if we have a multi-phase project, it's easier and easier to select just the ones you want. We can also add SKU items, things that we've purchased, that kind of thing. We'll just check everything. And we have our test material. Didn't add up to enough to even count as one roll, but it did automatically add it on. These are things that are set to display on shipping. And we can, from here, we can scan, load them on, and track whether they've made it or not. If I click on assembly here, you can see any information. We can add notes to it from anywhere we see it. So if we go back to the jobs, select one here, you can see now that the activities show there's one on a shipment. We could add a note. Say, problem with this cabinet. This is true. You can add a hot note or an FYI note to anything in Enterprise Manager. If we were running on my live copy, I would get an email notifying me of the hot note. As soon as I do something, I'm going to get a notification that I have a hot note. And the home screen's where there's basically a list of things that require your attention or follow-up. And sure enough, I have an open hot note right here. And there's my cabinet with the note. It'll stay there until I close it out. Next video, I'm going to cover my Screen and Machine Center interface.